Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful and scorchingly hot British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Zachary Adam Meisenheimer.
And we're going to be joined by Steve later on in the broadcast. He's just having a few technical issues just now, but we've decided we're too hot. We're not waiting for him. We want to get this finished as soon as we can and get our air conditioning back on. I mean, it's exciting, Zach. It's the first podcast that we have recorded naked. I was pushing for this to be a live stream on YouTube, but you wisely talked me out of it because we might then get banned. But we're going to start things off as always by opening up the gift that keeps on giving, Steve's 2011 Upper Deck trading card packs that he gave to us as a Christmas present last year. And I've got to start off with some terrible news. The pack that I opened last week, we've been so cocky about not getting any doubles. It was full of doubles. And I've had a sneak peek at the pack I've opened just now. I think I've got another pack of 6 doubles. But we'll see when I get to put it away. I'm going to start off with a guy that either you've got or I've got. He's from TFC. He's a defender. It's Ty Harden.
Oh, you have him. I don't think I do.
Oh, this is another pack then of doubles for me.
Well, sticking with the total football clowns, I have former Colorado Rapid midfielder Nick LaBrocca, TFC. Do you have this one? I don't have this one.
I don't know what I've got anymore, but I do know I have this guy. He's a Houston defender. It's Blobby Boswell.
Now, remember I told you before we started, Michael, that, you have that one, yeah. I think I might have that one too. I told you, my son here, Kirk, told me that this pack he's calling the good, the bad, and the ugly. The card he's referring to as the ugly is from the Flounders, Alvaro Fernandez.
Oh,
do you remember him? I think he was a DP. Was he a DP, I think?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Well, this is a card I know I've definitely got as well. It's a rookie card. If only he was any good. It's John Rooney. The Rooney you don't want.
Nice. Yeah, you have that one.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite cards in this whole series, Michael. Kirk's calling this the good of the deck. Now he's wearing his old team jersey like a lot of these cards, but it's 2011 expansion draft pick, I believe. Yeah. He played tonight, started on the left wing, Shea Salinas, Vancouver Whitecaps.
Oh. I thought he played tonight in the big Cascadian derby, but no. No. Well, I've got a guy. I also have this guy as well. So this is a full pack of doubles. Chicago Fire's Corey Gibbs.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah, I got him. Another total football clown, striker, left-footed striker. I believe he scored on March 19th, 2011. Mike Santos. He got one of the goals, right? D-Row got one. He got one, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, my next card, DC United. He's a midfielder. He's Junior Carrero.
Oh, yeah, we got that one. He's Fred's nephew or cousin or something. I'm a little bit hungry. I haven't eaten much today, and this always goats always make me hungry. This is Chivas USA Giancarlo Maldonado.
Oh, well, my last card, I have him as well. Houston Dynamo again. It's Danny Cruz.
Kirk called this the bad of the deck. It's from the team that's playing right now, the Portland Timbers. I'm going to pronounce it Bright DK, Michael.
Well, my last card that I got there, Zach, was Danny Cruz. And I thought the game between the Whitecaps and Seattle on Saturday night, it was going to be the Sounders that were in cruise control. But it did not play out that way.
No.
We're going to chat about that. We're going to chat a little bit about the CPL that kicked off as well this weekend. But before we get to all of that, I want to try something a little bit different. And we're going to just quickly talk about the midweek game, Whitecaps to the LA Galaxy. It was a 2-1 loss, a second consecutive game where they gave up the winner in stoppage time. They did, of course, score a goal in stoppage time as well. So we didn't get a chance to do a post-game show just because of work commitments and various things. So we're not going to delve too much into it. So what I thought I would do, and I've wanted to try this for a while, and I was actually going to do it for both the games tonight, but I think tonight's game's probably got a little bit more to talk about. I want to do a recap of the game, the 90 minutes in 90 seconds. So I'm just firing up my stopwatch here. So let's see if I can get this done. So the Whitecaps played LA Galaxy in Sandy, Utah on Wednesday night, heading into the game. Didn't really know what to expect, but they were coming out of it after giving up 2 stoppage time goals to Real Salt Lake in their previous game, making it 4 straight losses. If they'd lost this one, it was going to be tying the club record of 5, which the club had achieved in 2012 and 2019. I say achieved, that's obviously a very loose terminology there. I mean, the first half was a bit of a snooze fest. Neither side had any shots on target. And you're thinking, oh well, Whitecaps still win this one. Didn't last long. 2 minutes after the break, Chicharito got his 8th goal of the season. 8 goals for Chicharito. The Whitecaps, as a combined team, only had 7 goals by that point. And you're thinking, the writing's on the wall. But the Whitecaps fought back, and they fought back well. Gianni Obikel, the man who gave the ball away relay that led to Chicharito's goal, finds himself in acres of room in the Galaxy box, fires a low one into the back corner, cue massive celebrations, MDS joins in, the players go crazy. Perhaps, though, they should have kept their focus, because a minute later, Efrain Alvarez, an absolute screamer, into the top corner, 2-1 Galaxy, another stoppage time loss, another Whitecaps loss, 5 in a row. Terrible stuff, Zach.
Was that 90 seconds?
Yeah, that was 92 seconds, so I went a little bit into stoppage time.
90 plus 2 is not bad.
Yeah, so we'll take that.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I believe I told you it was going to be a 3-1 win for the Galaxy. So I didn't mind the stoppage time goals in one sense. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much social media stuff you looked at, Michael, but I did see one awkward comment talking about how MDS was unprofessional and celebrating.
Yeah, I was going to mention that to you.
I
thought it showed great passion.
Yeah, like to me, like you want people to care. Like you want them to be excited. You want. I mean, did that make them not focus? Did that make them? Was it an over celebration because it wasn't a go ahead goal? Like
that was the big criticism that I saw, and I do get that because you're celebrating just getting a point, but this was a team that's been going through hell, and to come out of it with a point, I think is
it was a step.
It would have been great, and it would have been something to build on. It would have stopped the rot, but instead we know how it ended up, and it was a screamer of a goal that won it from Alvarez. I mean, I don't think many or any keeper is going to keep that out.
No, that kind of criticism felt really, really, really harsh. And yeah, you want people to care, and you're right. I think it was. I think the better team won. Like, I mean, they showed their quality, and they showed a never say die kind of attitude. I love their Northern California counterparts who they played today. But did the players switch off after equalizing? Yeah, maybe they did a little bit, and maybe that's something that that is something that they did focus on, and it was talked a lot about after the follow-up game to this, which we'll talk about in a moment or two. But there are a lot of people right now, Michael, who are frustrated with the Whitecaps, who are frustrated with the coaching staff, are frustrated with the players and stuff. And I don't want to totally sound like a broken record, but you can only do so much with what you have. And I know there's the coaches played a big role in putting together the squad and stuff. But there's one other perspective I really want to address. And maybe you want to talk about this more later, or you want to slot this into a different part of the show. But there's a comment I keep from a certain segment of people who keep saying, people need to stop talking about the amount spent on the amount that they're spending, because was it last year or 2 years ago or whatever it was? They were
just last year, the highest spenders in
highest
CONCACAF.
spending football club in CONCACAF. Here's the thing. As easy as it is to turn around a roster and a team in MLS in one season, they obviously haven't done that. But also, you can't make up for 10 years of underspending, both on transfer fees and on player salaries, in 1 year of being the most, and they spent, like, I forget what the number was, but they didn't spend like more than 20 million on transfer fees, right? Like, the people saying that makes up for all of that, and that outdoes all of that. And that means that no one should talk about what they've spent on transfer fees and specifically on player wages and how they're using that is a bit frustrating, because you look at the game at LA, you look at some of these other games, and quality of the squads like shows through, right? I think something we would all agree on, Michael, you, Steve, and I at least, is that the league table doesn't lie. I know last year's an awkward year and whatever, blah, 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 but like the league table doesn't lie. It kind of, your true colors show through. And I don't know, I don't think, as much as Axel was excited to say that, hey, yeah, we're spending less than everybody and we're doing better than everyone at that point 3 or 4 matches ago, or whatever it was. Like, I don't think the league table is going to lie that much. I don't think they're going to be far away from what they're actually spending on salaries.
What I would say, though, is like when people say, oh, the owners are cheap, they're not prepared to spend anything, they want the team to lose, they want to move away. I do point out that isn't the case, because they have spent this money on transfers. They wouldn't be doing that if they weren't wanting to try and turn this team around.
But the other side of that, though, Michael, is I think they're spending.
Previously they haven't.
Yeah, previously haven't. 2 is, Michael, the reason why I think they're spending money now is they realize they can't sell the club for what they want, because the value of it has diminished so much.
I don't know that it has, though, because you move this team to any city and you've basically got a new expansion team.
Yeah. Oh,
and
no.
You can rebuild it as if it's a new expansion team, but you're actually inheriting some players with it where you wouldn't with an expansion team necessarily.
But I don't think anyone. You're right. I agree. You could get it for a cheaper expansion. Totally cheaper than the 250, 200, 300, whatever these ridiculous numbers that MLS has been getting recently. But I don't think that they're a really. In their attempts to sell, which my understanding is they've tried to sell as much as they try and tell people they haven't, it have not been successful, in part because of where the valuation of what the club is at the moment. Because I think they've tried to sell to locally, or to people who would keep it locally, and people who understand its place in the local community know that it's not as valuable as that franchise fee is to an outside community.
Oh yeah. It's definitely more valuable to outside. But one thing I would say, like, people that's angry about the team, people that are very vocal on social media, I think that's good, because it shows that people still care. Because it would be really easy to not give a shit about this team anymore and just walk away and give up on it. And the fact that there is people out there that are criticising everything and like decrying everything and wanting the team to do well, I like that. It shows that folks still care about this team. But and if you didn't have that, you're in an even more perilous state than you are.
Yeah, but as much as there is an amount of people that are doing what you just said, there's also at least a significant amount of people who also don't care anymore.
Oh yeah, there is a lot. I mean, I've had so many folk tweet me this week alone just saying, I don't care anymore. I had season tickets. I used to go every week. Now I don't even necessarily watch all the games. And yeah, I mean, I totally get that. it's a shame. And they're going to have to do a lot of work when they get back to Vancouver, as we've talked about, maybe not necessarily this year, but definitely for next year, depending on how this year plays out. And the easiest way of doing it is to get a winning team on the pitch. But we'll talk about a potential new addition later on as well. What the team needs to do, first and foremost, is still have people interested in this season when they get back to Vancouver. I wrote on the site, and I think I said in the last show as well, the worst thing that they can do is to go on a massive losing streak, get back to Vancouver, their season's basically over, no one's really going to care. It was important to stop the rot. There were 5 straight defeats, as I mentioned, that tied the worst that they've been in 2012, 2019, under Martin Rennie and under MDS. I lost against Seattle on Saturday night, where I made it 6 defeats in a row. It's the club record that you don't want. If you're the manager, that is not the record that you want. And you would probably have to think, despite what Axel said, MDS's job would be on the line. Going into Dallas, I felt that made it a must-win game for him. So they had to stop the rot. Have they stopped it? It was a 1 point taken tonight in a 2-2 draw with Seattle. I think it was a good performance. It was a strong performance. It was a battling performance. They went toe-to-toe against the undefeated Supporters' Shield leaders. How did you view the game tonight? Were you happy with what you saw from the team, the fighting spirit?
I agree with you that there's a lot of positives to take away, aside from the result, aside from the point, aside from not losing to arguably your biggest rival, no matter how they view you. There was a battling spirit there. They didn't give up, right? Like, they went down a goal, and not only did they equalize, but they also took the lead, quite surprisingly, and perhaps illegally. But
I was on the post-game show on AM 730, and when I was asked about that, I said I thought I had heat stroke and was hallucinating because the Whitecaps were in the lead at Seattle, but turned out it was real.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of positive. I think one of the things I liked in terms of how they're trying to figure out how to make this, or their system, how they want to play work, was earlier in the year they were having a lot of success, or a lot of positive things coming down their left side, and a lot of that was playing a 4-4-2 where you had Russell Tybert on the left, who kind of could cover for an overlapping Gutierrez. And I felt like as they've shuffled things up a little bit recently, that they've lost some of the early effect that they had from that. But they tried to do this the other day, and I don't think it worked as well. But what they've trying to do, I think, is with this 4-3-3 I wouldn't call it a 4-3-3 personally. I think it's called that for optics perspective, to make it look like they're more of an attacking side than they are. But because really what it looks like is you have the back 4 as normal, but then you have 3 central-ish midfielders where it enables Russell Tybert to play like a left central midfield role, right, in that 3, and to give them more numbers in the middle to help in what they know is going to be a key part of the game, fighting and winning and distributing the ball from the middle of the field. It allows Russell to tuck inside where he knows he has Dyber doing the attacking work on the flank, but it also still allows him to slot in for Gutierrez, who wants to overlap and who wants to get forward. But in essence, it's really another version of a 4-5-1. But I think they used that to good effect today. And I think that's what they were trying to do in the last game, and it didn't quite have the same impact that they were hoping.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I'm delighted to see that we've got Steve back with us now, coming away from Seattle with a point after 5 straight losses, 2 stoppage time defeats. It can only be good mentally for the team. I had a couple of people message me and say that I was getting a little bit excited just by getting a point. But I think the way that things have been, it's a good result for the Whitecaps. I know they gave up the lead, but coming away with a point, I did not fancy them going into this. I would have bitten their hands off going into this to get a point.
Yeah, even though I was given a 2-1 prediction, prediction for this game, even though I didn't give the prediction, I had them
No.
for I had them for a loss. I definitely did have them for a loss. I was actually out somewhere. I didn't watch the game live, so I didn't follow like all the general specific points of the game. But when I saw Steve for the win or something like that, and then I was like, okay, now I got to pay attention to what's going on. So then I started paying attention and recapped everything right away. Then yeah, I would not have expected this is the game where you wanted them to have a positive in against LA so that they could slip up against this game or just play to what their level is against the Seattle Sounders. So while it doesn't make up for the LA game, because that is definitely a huge negative, that's something they should have won. Or definitely came away with a point or something, or displayed a better performance. This one definitely does kind of reverse the track a little bit, but not fully. It's still spinning into the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's what they do after this now that is going to be key.
Yeah,
there's two big games coming up, Dallas and RSL.
Even in their worst seasons, they had those one-off games where everyone was like, "Oh my God, they actually did something against this team," and then they just did not follow up on that. So they need to keep following up on that. Next game could be maybe a victory, and then another one, and then they just need to pile them up because they need to make up for that 5-game losing streak that they had there.
Yeah. But I mean, they're still very much in touch with the playoffs. I mean, we're talking that 24 left to play, and a bulk of those are going to be hopefully in Vancouver. So I mean, there's definitely time to turn things around.
Yeah, it's just they're just kind of starting to spin their wheels, and you don't want them to. You want them just to get some momentum and get out of that mud, and not get stuck in it. Like they look like they were getting stuck in it for a while there.
Well, I mean, the game tonight, we won't break it down too much. 40th minute, Rui Diaz puts Seattle into the lead. I'm thinking, here we go. I mean, they'd held on well. Both teams had chances. You look at those first half stats, and the Whitecaps were ahead in so many of the metrics. Possession was pretty much 50-50, but they'd had more shots than Seattle. They'd had a better completed passing rate. Everything was building up for a good performance. Then Rui Diaz scores that, and you're like, oh, here we go. I really feared the worst. But they came out in the second half, and again, they had more of a spark, more fire. And I'll play a little bit from MDS in a bit, but I said to Marc after the game, if you could just bottle whatever it is that happens in that second half and unleash it and sprinkle it in the first half, you'd be picking up a lot more points than you currently are. Because that's 10 games now with no goals in the first half. I don't know how long that can go on.
Michael, you want them to bottle it?
I want them they did that in the last 2 games in stoppage time, you could argue, but I didn't see them coming back at all. Did you, Zach?
No, not at all. I mean, you called 4-0, I called 3-0. I didn't see this result coming at all, which is a positive for them.
Yeah,
but I mean, I watched the post game. I saw your questions. Yeah, it is concerning that they still can't have a first half where they look threatening to the point that they're going to score.
They had a couple of chances, and they always seem to have a couple of chances. And
Diber should have scored, and Caillou should have scored.
Now, I'm not sitting here and saying Marc's not made mistakes, and that some of his tactics, his formations, just the team's performances have been awful in his tenure here. So I'm not being an apologist for him and sticking up for him 100%. But at the end of the day, he can't put the ball in the back of the net for these guys. When you've got those opportunities, you've got to bury them. And you can't keep the ball out the net for these guys as well. They've got to be mentally switched on. You can only do so much as a coach. And I'll say that about any coach at any club. It's like the players have to take a level of responsibility as well. But the second half, whatever was said at halftime again, they came out, and the goal from Dahomey, absolutely fantastic goal. great ball, first and foremost, from Caio Alexandre. Long punt forward, but he knew where Dahomey was, played it forward, it took a bounce. Dahomey chipped it over the onrush in Cleveland, and then coolly put it into the far corner, back to 1-1.
I'll compare it to an attempt by the Italian player today where he, at the end of the 90 minutes, he tried to do something spectacular when he should have done something nice and calm, and that's what Dahomey did right there.
Yeah.
Nice and calm, did the right moves, and played the ball where it had to be, and finished it. And that's what you're looking for. That's essentially what the Whitecaps lack sometimes when they that's the anti-Darren Maddox.
Composure.
Yeah, anti-Darren Maddox there. Where Darren Maddox will just like fly around with it. But it's exactly what they needed, and it kind of probably lifted them up because they saw a great finish. Sometimes you see somebody do something like that, and it brings the whole team up. So definitely a huge goal for them at that point.
I mean, Zach, lovely finish. He showed some coolness to do it, which a little bit later in the game, when it was 2-1, he had another great chance to make it 3-1 and he blasted over. So didn't have quite the cool head then. But I mean, that was a great finish. He was in the right place where you want him to be. And he sent in a beautiful ball for Cava for the second goal as well. He had probably the man of the match, I think, for the Whitecaps tonight.
Yeah, I think he was named that too by, I forget who it was. I was going to say Gatorade, but that was, I think, the CPL one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll come to that weird one. I think it's GE's Player of Quality, is it not?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say. But no, I mean, he did well. I mean, he's the leading scorer, isn't he? Or he tied with...
Yeah, he's the leading scorer.
He's got like at least 4, right? So it was good to see him get back on the score sheet and to be clinical. And yeah, MDS talked about it post-game too. Like you could say they were a little bit lucky, I think, with the Cava goal, which I don't think he was referring to, but you could say they were a little bit lucky to maybe be in the game, to draw the game 2-2, but they're also maybe a little bit lucky to not win the game. And there was, like you said, in the first half, you're right. Caicedo and more so, both of them, but Caillou especially for me, his header, the free header, with at least half the net open. That's I think the second or third time he's done that this year where he's missed that kind of chance, and I felt really bad for him. But you're right, he is involved with an assist or with a setup later, and
I thought he had a pretty good game, mainly in the second half.
Yeah,
he's another contender for me. Talking about plaudits and stuff. Janio Bikel as well. Another good performance from him at right back. I like him at right back.
Is Jake fully fit?
No, Jake's... Okay. I don't know what happened. Because him and Gaspar were both coming back from their injuries. We know that Gaspar got an injury at training, so he was out. And Blake Price said in the commentary that Nerwinski was also injured and couldn't make the 18, whatever has happened.
Okay. I don't listen with commentary on anymore.
Yeah, well, like you've got Javane Brown as well. So you've got your 3 right backs out injured. And then you've got a guy like Gianni Bikel to come in. And they mentioned as well in the commentary that Patrick Metcalf was the emergency right back if need be, if anything happened to Bikel during the game.
He also saw some time, which was nice for him.
Yeah, I think that was needs must at that point. It's like they were starting to drop like flies. That heat definitely started to take its toll. Players were cramping up. I mean, we talk about Dahomey being where you want him to be. Cava was where you want him to be. Where MDS has talked about wanting him to be. Yep, in that 6-yard box.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. That is where he gets a lot of his goals.
He was there with his feet, his head, his hands. Everything was in that 6-yard box. That's where he should have been.
Steve, I don't know if
shoulders, knees, and toes.
Yeah. Steve, I don't know if you saw in the post game. He said it's been 35. It's been 35 years since Maradona's hand of God. Basically,
he was paying tribute to him. Paying tribute to a hero. As I pointed out, though, it's against England. So that was good. This was against Seattle, so that's good. So
also good, yeah. I can't disagree with that logic.
I should also mention that I was wearing my Unity jersey today, and so I wore it to the place I went to because it contours my body really well, the black of it.
Black and the heat wave's a great idea, I think.
Well, yeah, but you got to look at other things too. And also, I was wearing that against when they beat Portland as well. So maybe I should keep wearing that on game nights.
Oh. I was worried there. I thought you were going to say you're wearing your Union Jack top or something. I was going to cut you out. It's like, oh, more technical difficulties, Steve's away. But yeah, let's talk about Cava's goal then. I thought it had hit off 5 body parts, might be 4, but it certainly did the rounds along his body. The ultimate question though is, was it a handball?
Was it clear and obvious to get?
Well, it wasn't clear and obvious because there is an angle from behind the goal that it really is hard to tell if it hit his hand or not, and it kind of looks like it didn't.
Yeah.
So I'll play you a little bit of Cava from the post game, just talking about the win, his goal, and just what this does to the team. Let's hear what Cava had to say. I just want to ask you, like, going into this game, I'm pretty sure you would have taken a point. Are you happy to stop the losing streak by getting the point, or do you feel the game was there for the taking in all 3?
I mean, in a moment like this that we were going through, I think coming to Seattle to try and take away that bad streak we had, who would have knew that we would have got a result like this? Honestly, I wanted to win the game, of course. Maybe we should have deserved to win, but I'm still happy with the draw because I'm happy with the attitude of the boys today. It's not easy coming to Seattle. I mean, you can feel the heat in the stadium today. The fans, we were playing against everything, the refs, and we still managed to come with a result like that. For me, it's gold for us. And I mean, we still have a lot in front of us, and there's still a lot of games going forward. So here we set the tone, and we just have to get out of that bad streak we were going through.
What was going through your mind when the board went up and said 7 minutes? Marc kind of talked a little bit about it. Did you have all flashbacks to the last couple of games?
No, honestly, I was waiting. I was cramping up bad, but, I was like, 7 minutes? Shit. We have to run. We have to work. I mean, I was working my butt off. And, I mean, obviously they were attacking, Seattle attacking. They create a lot of chances, but honestly, I was hoping for one ball just to get a rebound or we intercept the ball. And I was looking at the goalie. He was all the way up, and I just wanted to take a shot from half, but never got the chance to. And I mean, luckily we ended the game 2-2, but I mean, that was a good 7 minutes to try and get a last minute goal, but unfortunately not the case this time.
Let's talk about your goal then. It seemed to hit off about 5 different body parts as it went in, and I was surprised it wasn't called back with VAR, but were you surprised?
Did it hit my hand?
Yeah.
Did it?
It looked like it may have.
This is in memory of Maradona then. 35 years.
Hey, I'll take that. It was against England, so that's fine. What does this do to the group mentally? You've got 2 big games coming up, Dallas, RSL. They're 2 very winnable games. Obviously, RSL's a weird one because you're the home team against a home team. But how do you feel the group's going to approach this week in training? It must be setting you up on a high. You must feel you're going to be able to get things done now before the next break.
Yeah, I mean, now we have a full week to prepare well for the next game. I mean, the vibe in the dressing room today is good. I see the players are just relieved. I mean, the performance of the team was incredible today. Showed a lot of character and attitude, and trying to get that identity back, as I said previously this week. And I mean, we just gotta, fly back to Salt Lake. Rest a bit, enjoy the day with our families, and start going back to work on Monday and worry about Dallas.
That's great. Cheers, Cava.
Cheers.
So Cava there just talking about his goal. Was it handball? He doesn't know. He may have known a bit more when he first sat down, but we won't go into all of that. Hey, they all count. I don't care what they go in out of. And MLS has adopted the new rule that comes into play in August anyway about handball. So.
And the thing is, it's definitely not the most obvious handball. It's like we use, I think there's been a number of handballs that were way more obvious than Cavallini's handball there. And and the angles were not that great. Like when you're looking at full speed, it's impossible to tell if it hit his hand or not. So if it's impossible at full speed, the replay should not be able to pick that out. That's the translation for clear and obvious there.
I've just got the quote sheet that they send out. So I asked Cava 4 questions, and one of them was about that handball. That one didn't make the quote sheet. Funny that.
Shocking that.
Yeah. But, yeah, 2-1 up. I didn't see it coming, and, stunned. Genuinely stunned that they got ahead. I felt Seattle were going to come back into it, but like I mentioned, Dahomey had that great chance. Should have made it 3-1. But then Jimmy Medranda drills one home from the edge of the box through a crowd of players as well, which I need to watch it back. I haven't actually watched that one back, but my gut feeling at the time was, how does it go through so many players? And no one sticks a foot out or does something with it.
It was a little bit to the side of them. Like there was a whole bunch of players there, but he put it in the right spot. Is how I saw it on the replay and stuff. But the bigger thing for me was the misses before that. Rui Diaz and the Colombian.
Yes. He had a couple of close calls and didn't put it away. Obviously still has a soft spot for Vancouver.
He wasn't brewing much tonight.
No. But 19 minutes to go after that. I genuinely did not think that they would hold on, and both teams had chances. Both teams had great chances in stoppage time that they could have won it. But when 7 minutes went up for stoppage time, Steve, I asked Cava that. I asked MDS as well, and we'll play MDS shortly. What was going through your mind when you saw 7 minutes?
I was like, somebody on MLS New York is on the phone right now. That's what it felt like to me. That's whenever I see when it doesn't seem like it. Look, I can't remember. Was there a water break in that second half? Maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah.
So that's the main reason why. But so if that's the case, then that's
there was
fine.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah, minor things. So in that case, it's fine. It probably is understandable, but still, 7 minutes, it seems excessive. I've seen water breaks that don't last cause a 7 minute of extra time, injury time.
But they held on, Zach. They saw it out, and never mind coming away from a point and stopping the losing run. To actually see out stoppage time as well is a huge mental boost for this team. I'm not being funny here, but if they had conceded again in stoppage time, I genuinely don't know what damage that would have done to their psyche.
Yeah, they overcame the ghosts, Michael.
Which is how I referred to it during the week as well. So that was
exercise the ghost.
But seriously, if Seattle had scored in there, how much do you think the pressure would have been exponentially on MDS?
Yeah.
The honest question: is there an actual scenario where you see them firing him before his contract runs out?
In all honesty, I thought if they lost against Seattle and they lose next week against Dallas, he would have gone either after the Dallas game or after the RSL game when the break was coming up. Despite what Axel said, I thought 2 more losses, 7 straight defeats, I could have seen them pulling the trigger then.
Okay.
Now, this is not to say that they still won't, because I was digging into Robbo's firing. And the interesting thing was he got fired after losing to Seattle and Dallas in back-to-back games. But in the previous 3 games, he'd taken 7 points from those 3 games. He lost 2 and got canned. So, MDS being on that run, I would have thought there was a good chance he might have gone.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, Steve?
For me, back then they were looking for a reason to let Robbo go. It wasn't really
all the locker room stuff. I think I
think those it was just convenient for them that those 2 losses came and they came.
What locker room stuff are you talking about, Michael?
The Unity jersey. I was talking about the Unity jersey. Remember, I was talking about
all the post game stuff and the cliques.
Yeah. I think. I've seen people comment about that again this week, and I think that there's a drastic misunderstanding of that. And I think we covered it at the time, but I think there was certain people who had that perspective of things. But I definitely do not think in the whole the majority of that locker room, I don't think shared the views that were shared at the end of the season. And I think those views were shared for certain reasons. And I saw someone, I forget it was in response to one of your tweets, Michael, or someone else's, that they made reference to kind of what you're talking about that I think are really a portrait that some people in the Whitecaps FO really wanted to portray things as. And that's how it stuck with some people, even though it wasn't really true.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When you get it out there, the first impression is what people usually latch onto nowadays, especially in social media.
Oh, well, yeah, because it's like folk only remember the first tweet they see. They don't remember an apology, for example. If a newspaper does something and they print an apology, no one remembers that. You remember the first story. Usually
the first story is big letters and everything, and the apology or retractions on the second, third page hidden in the corner or something like that.
Crossword clue, 3 across. Yeah. MDS was asked during the week if he felt he had lost the locker room. And he was like, you can't ask a coach that, you need to ask the players that. I feel I haven't. And I feel that the players want to do well. And he addressed that tonight. And he said, if this was a team that was lost, you wouldn't have seen that kind of fighting performance tonight. And I do agree with that. This does seem a happier locker room. They seem a united locker room. And hopefully they can just go on and build from this now, because it's 2 big games coming up. Dallas is the only team below them in the Western Conference standings. RSL, yes, they're playing on their own turf, but they just went toe-to-toe with them and should have come away from that one with a draw. If we don't get 4 points from these 2 games, at least I'll be kind of disappointed on the back of this.
I want to mention about the whole losing the locker room thing. Just because you're losing games doesn't mean the people in the locker room don't get along.
Yeah.
And it just and the opposite, if you're winning a lot of games, it doesn't mean that your players get along. They could hate each other, and there's been numerous teams in the past in many sports where the players did not get along in the locker room, but they kept winning games because they had that chemistry on the field or pitch or whatever.
Yeah.
On the ice.
I agree. I feel like that part of the public conversation was definitely premature. I don't have the connections to the playing squad I once did, so that's not based on anything but just observation from the outside. But I feel like that was that kind of conversation was premature and highly speculative or just highly based on what people see from other sports or other times or other teams or whatever. I think you see a squad that is fighting for each other and fighting for their coaches and fighting for their club and their community. I mean, there are other questions to be asked. I mean, about the dynamics within the squad and how maybe that influences or impacts their performance and their connectivity and stuff. Like, I still don't understand. And I know he's been a part of some of the biggest positive moments of the season, but he's definitely been some of the biggest negative moments in the season. And we didn't really talk about it from the RSL game, but he was at fault, I think, for the 3rd goal or 2nd goal. I can't remember now, but I still don't understand why Andy Rose continues to play such a significant role at center back for this team. I really think...
I think it's just because he has that experienced head to organise and marshal the defence.
Yeah, but that's Godoy should be doing that. Godoy is just as much experienced than Andy.
Yeah, but he also doesn't speak a lot of English.
Well, it's an international language.
Yeah, I really think that it should be Godoy with Ranko, who came on in the Seattle game, or even Godoy in DC. And I know there's criticism for maybe both those players, but especially Derek. But to me, it's like you need to, in life, not just in sports, you need to grow with some players, right? And if this is not a title, they're not throwing away a title, they're not throwing away whatever. I think this is a time where they need to say, we believe, they paid money for Ranko, right? A lot. I know not crazy money, but it's the kind of thing where you need to say these are the players we see, and you need to run with them for a while. We know how much players need a run in the side to really find their footing and really really take hold of their position and all that kind of stuff. And like, I really think they need to do that, whether it's Ranko or DC or whatever. I think one of them needs to be next to Godoy and have a run of games to really take that next step and be what they can be. And they need to know that there's going to be some foibles, but they're getting foibles already with what they have.
Okay.
We're going to talk later about a number 10. Does anyone else, is there any other conversation about a center back?
Well, I asked Axel, I said, I feel that we need an experienced veteran centre-back there. A guy that can marshal the defence, basically do what they're wanting Andy Rose to do, but has been there and done that as a centre-back. And I still would like that addition. If it's a guy that's done it in MLS, all the better.
Especially if they don't feel like Godoy is that person, because that's what I thought he was. He was.
Well,
that
no,
person
whoever it is would be to play with Godoy, because Godoy is the guy. Godoy is, I think Marc mentioned, Godoy is he's their number one centre back.
Yeah, the thing is when Ranko was brought in, as Zach was mentioning, when Ranko was brought in, they really emphasized his leadership ability. Mm-hmm. They mentioned how he was the youngest captain on this team or something like that, and the youngest captain in the league. I can't remember exactly the wording they used, but he was meant to be that leadership person, and that's why they brought him in. So, like, that's where I'm disappointed. And the thing is, a lot of people criticizing Derek Cornelius. I don't like his mistakes are very minor. They're just like here and there. They're not athletic mistakes. They're not mistakes where he's not paying attention. It's just like the ball has just missed him by a little bit. It's not like an effort. Like the criticism for, like, the thing is, Zach is 100% right. You need, center backs take time to grow, so you got to give them time. We've had Godoy missing for a whole year. We had last year Ranko missing for a bit. Derek was missing with Canada. So you got to let them grow and have pick two and set, like, at this point, they're not. I personally don't feel they're making the playoffs at this point. I know there's a lot of games to go, but there's no, even if you want to try to set it up for next year, you got to let them run right now. Andy Rose is not going to be here next year. He might be coaching in residency next year. So, like, he's not on the team. Let's go with the pair you're going to go with for a long term and see if that's what helps you.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Let's just hear a little bit now from Marc Dos Santos after the match tonight. I say a little bit. He gave some really long answers tonight and broke down a lot of things. But yeah, let's just hear what he had to say. Battling performance, really hard work and display. Can you talk a little bit about just your emotions coming out of that one? Is it a sense of relief to kind of stop the slump it's been on, a bit frustrated that you maybe didn't come away with all three?
Michael, I'll say this about you. I think your comments are always extremely direct and fair. And I agree with you. I think the total organization of the team, the commitment of the team. You know, this week a lot of people, when people that I had to deal with the media, I heard a lot about losing the locker room and things like that. And a locker room that's lost doesn't answer like that, you know. Incredible commitment from the guys. But also, if you take especially the first half, I think there was spells of us on the ball, finding Baldi, switch. We were down. We got down at the 48th minute, but we were playing a good game. So our speech here at halftime was of a lot of confidence. No need to yell, no need to go at the guys, being extremely positive. We knew that we had to keep the game close because if Seattle would have done the 2-0, it would have been much more difficult. And then I think that we came out with confidence. We got goals. It's normal at the end that they pushed us back, and then we had guys falling and being physically struggling with cramps, and maybe it's a normal thing with the amount of games that we had, but it's something to build on. It's something to move on. I keep looking at the full picture of the playoff spot. We're 4 points away. So we have to take this game, grow. It was an environment that is extremely difficult against a very good team that fought a lot. But then I have to be honest with you, the only place in the game that my heart started to beat a little bit more was in injury time. Because when I saw those 7 minutes going up, and then the just being very honest with you, the ghosts of Real Salt Lake and the ghosts of LA Galaxy coming back to your head, and we were getting low. We weren't able to come out, and then it was survival. But one of the talks we had in the 2 days preparing for this game is we have to be a team that in these moments we make the right plays, defending a throw and make the play, fight. If we need to bring everybody back, just make the plays to get you through the game. And I think tonight that's what we did. So did I believe in the win? Yes, absolutely, especially when it was 2-1. Am I happy with the point? I think every team that comes to Seattle and gets a point, it's a positive thing.
The first half performance, it wasn't a bad performance, and a lot of the metrics you outperformed Seattle in that first half. Again, no goal. If you could just bottle the magic that you seem to generate in the second half for the first half, obviously things would be different. But I know you've worked hard on it and trying to get to the bottom of it. Does it just boil down to a little bit of luck, the kind of taking the chances when they come along?
A little bit of luck, in some moments a little bit of quality, because some of the chances were very big. So I'll just give you 2 examples. The chance of Caio in the first half, the header, you remember that one? And the chance of Daber, these are 2 huge chances and the percentage of chance to score. So it's a question of the player having the right quality in that moment. And that, what we have to do is work, a lot of work during training, a lot of individual work, a lot of belief in those areas. And that's it. I think it comes down to that. Then in the second half, we were able to finish maybe chances that were more difficult. I think the chance of Dajo is a difficult angle to hit it like that on the turf one touch. Then the chance of Cava that he scores is maybe more difficult, more difficult than the clear header of Caio. So sometimes, I hate talking about this in soccer, but the little factor of luck is also important, but it comes with work.
The important thing now is to build on this point. There's 2 really big games coming up, Dallas, RSL, 2 very winnable games. The squad looks a little bit beat up. I know it's right after the game, but I mean, how's things looking? Do you feel comfortable that going into these 2 games, you're going to have a pretty full squad?
Michael, I'd be concerned if the game is Wednesday. But the game, we're going to have time now to go back home, to rest guys, to do the right things in the recovery and training, and to prepare the game against Dallas with a lot of passion and commitment. What I understand the passion of everybody that likes and loves the Whitecaps to win and get points. But I'll tell you, it's hard to play every game in the opponent's stadiums with their fans. It's harder than maybe you think. And when I say you, it's in general. Okay, it's you feel a push towards them. I just can't wait for football to get back to normality. I just can't wait for that. Right now, it's a part that is difficult for us mentally. And you mentioned the Salt Lake game. Dallas is winnable. And in MLS, before this game, everybody probably would think that we would come here and not have the legs or the mentality to play Seattle, right? MLS is like that. Number one against the last one against number one. It's every game. The only thing that matters is the 90 minutes. Then we play in Dallas with their fans, and then we play the most ironical game that we've been playing since COVID. We played Portland home last year in Portland, home in Portland against Portland, and now we're playing Salt Lake home against Salt Lake. So, guys, the mindset of the guys has been really good, and they're trying to push. And again, if you go to the last few games, I repeat, the only game that we were blown away in the game that was played was in Kansas City. All the other games, it was by little things, all little things. So that's what we reviewed in the 2 days leading to this game.
He's the gaffer. You can try it on with him. He's the gaffer. Even when he's on a limb. He's the gaffer. When his back's against the wall, has the answer to it all. He's the gaffer.
So that was Marc Santos there, chatting about the draw with Seattle, what you can take from it, what it means to the team, and a few things like that as well. Now, we're not going to do our usual MLS roundup in this episode of the show, because I want to have the second half of the show focusing on some CPL stuff. But I'm going to run over the results from Saturday, because we are recording this, as I mentioned, on Saturday night. So there's a slate of games on Sunday as well, which will be in the bank by the time that this comes out. But just looking at the Western Conference teams, Sporting Kansas City, 2-1 come from behind win against LAFC this afternoon. And one of the turning points of that was a sending off for LAFC. I mean, they'd taken the lead in the first half, and then Blackman was sent off, and then Pulido, building on Steve's criticism of him, scored in the 61st minute. Saloy got the winner 3 minutes from time. But a little bit of an injury scare for Pulido. So we'll kind of see what happens there. Another game today, Salt Lake 1, Houston 1. Justin Glad taking the lead for Salt Lake in the 11th minute. Houston tied up in the second half through Maxi Urruti. San Jose 1, LA Galaxy 3 in the Cali Clasico, or whatever it is that they call it. But the big California derby anyway. And LA comfortable in this one. Chicharito in the 11th minute. Chicharito again in the 50th minute. An own goal 20 minutes from time. 3-0 to LA, and then Kyle pulled one back 8 minutes to go for San Jose. And the last match on Saturday, 1-0 win for Minnesota. 2nd minute goal from Hunau. Got the 3 points for Minnesota down at Picky Park in a game that had been pushed back a couple of times kickoff wise for the weather, because I believe it's in the 40s down there at the moment, which of course it looks like we're possibly going to be hitting in the next couple of days as well. So, I mean, all those standings just now, with some games still to come on Sunday. Seattle, 2-point lead at the top from Kansas City. Seattle still the only unbeaten team in MLS. LA Galaxy sitting third, in Colorado, Minnesota, Houston, Portland make up the playoff places. Salt Lake just out of the playoff spots on 13 points. Then LAFC, San Jose, Austin, Vancouver and Dallas. So Vancouver on 8 points after that draw tonight. 5 points off Portland, who sit in the 7th and final playoff spots in the West. Games that are coming up on Sunday featuring Western teams. Austin at home to Columbus and Dallas at home to New England, heading into that big Basement Bowl battle next weekend in Dallas. It's a Sunday game. Just to touch on the two Canadian teams quickly. Montreal, they drew 1-1 with Nashville. They were leading. Struna had put them ahead in the 63rd minute, but then talk about the Whitecaps giving up stoppage time goals. It was the same for Nashville. Dinladi, 94th minute, earned a point for Nashville. And Toronto lost 2-0 to Cincinnati. Losing to Cincinnati is bad enough. Losing 2-0 to Cincinnati. Cruz in the 4th minute. Acosta with a great goal, has to be said, in the 68th minute. TFC in trouble, guys.
Yeah, and Armis, no, I wouldn't say a breakdown, but it was pretty bad in the post game. I saw that.
Oh,
on
really?
TS.
I haven't seen that.
It wasn't. I wouldn't say it's like he like lost it or anything like that, but he was like very upset about the squad, about what's going on, and just is this not acceptable by anybody? I've never been in this position. I don't know what to do. It was like you just kind of rambling. You know how a manager would do that after all those losses, and especially losing to Cincinnati. I think he felt it too, that losing to Cincinnati was a big deal.
I've just got the quote sheet up. I'll let Zach give his thoughts on it while I just have a quick look through the quote sheet here.
I was surprised that he switched back to Bono again.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised at that, and I don't think that's going to help anything. Toronto has suffered in MLS from getting rid of coaches really quickly, which some of them they probably needed to, but they've also learned to like ride things out with a coach. Like I think Vandy didn't even start super well either.
No, he didn't.
Not this bad, I don't think, but still.
No.
But in MLS, I think you really need to give a coach time, and which is why I think some people are frustrated with MDS. They feel he's been given enough time, which is totally debatable, I think. But the thing that makes me uncomfortable with the Toronto coaching situation is how it's kind of like they didn't get who they wanted, and so the guy in charge, Ali Curtis, brings in a former employee who it's like his guy who he can trust, but I don't think he's a right fit for the club or the organization or the level
you talk
have
about a coach that looks like he might have lost the locker room. He's certainly lost at least out of the word. You don't know what other ones.
Star striker.
And I was just reading the quote sheet there. He was asked about the fact you don't have your 3 DPs, and he just did not mention Altidore. He just talked about the other 2 and talked them up and said how difficult it is when you don't have all 3 of your DPs on the field. But they've given up so many early goals. I mean, you're talking about the Whitecaps not scoring in the first half.
4 minutes in.
Yeah, TFC just keep giving goals up in the first 15 minutes of games. So
yeah.
It's a very testing time for him. I read the quote that you were talking about there, Steve, and he said he's uncomfortable. He's never been in a situation like this, but it all starts with him. But the players, none of them want to be losing just now, and it's difficult for them because, again, they're playing not in their home country, and they're playing in a very unfamiliar environment as well down there. It's like a lot of heat for them. So, I mean, that's another team that I'm sure can't wait to get back on Canadian soil and start to get playing.
Yeah, but Toronto's not that cool at this point of the year either.
No.
It's a very hot and humid there too.
Yeah. But that's our quick MLS roundup. I just want to finish talking about MLS and the Whitecaps, but just talking about where the Whitecaps go from here. I'd kind of penciled this in to talk about, and I thought it was possibly going to be on the back of another loss, but it's not. If they lose against Dallas, if they lose against RSL, this point for me means nothing. They're still back at square one. How do we fix? Well, not us because they don't let us pick the team. But how does this team get fixed? Because MDS, it feels he's throwing a lot of things at the wall. Some of it's sticking, some of it's not. There's some things that are puzzling, like Owusu. He seems to do well when he comes on, but he's not getting starts. So if you're not going to play him, I as well just maybe letting him go, free up a roster spot and an international spot. I think a midfield 3 of him, Baldissimo and Alexandre, would be possibly something that the Whitecaps need if you're going for that 3-man midfield just now. They've been hit with all these injuries to defenders and to fullbacks. You've still got Ali Adnan that can't get into the country. So, I mean, there's been a lot going against the team. Is it just good that they're still clinging on with everything that's going against them, or should they be higher up the table right now? And how do you get them up the table with losing some players to the Gold Cup as well?
Well, it's not confirmed who's going to the Gold Cup.
No, not yet.
Point,
and I've been trying to find out whether they're going to be here for both the Dallas and the RSL games, but it's not clear yet either.
It all depends. Like for me, there is a combination of just bad luck with injuries. It's not even like the injuries are spread out in different parts of the pitch or whatever.
Yeah.
It's right in the same spot, it seems like, both fullback sides. Well, one is not an injury. One's just, exile or whatever you want to call it. But I've never, like, I think there was typically it's center back where they get the injuries in other years. This year it's fullback. So I'm just wondering, in future years, do they need to like make sure they have like 6-7 center back, right fullbacks in order to make sure injuries? I just don't know what to do. Like, obviously, there's a certain number that we could say that would probably fix a lot of the issues in the midfield.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing.
I don't want to mention that number. I don't want to mention that number every week. So,
well, we're going to have to. Everyone talks about bringing in that number.
Yeah, we should do a different language every week.
Ja, nu moet zijn.
Oh, yeah, Zane. I can go with that.
Insane in the membrane.
But everyone thinks just bringing in this attacking midfielder is going to solve so many of the Whitecaps' problems. And it'll solve some of them, but it doesn't solve everything. It doesn't solve the defence switching off. It doesn't mean just because you bring him in and he's creating that the strikers are going to finish their chances. So there's going to be a lot on the shoulders of whoever comes in. And of course, if you've been living under a rock, you may have missed this, but I broke the story on Monday that the Whitecaps have an offer in for a number 10, a Scottish number 10, Ryan Gauld. He's been plying his trade in Portugal, though, for the last couple of years. He's fluent in Portuguese. He's used to that kind of style of play, the kind of South American style of play. And he's coming off the best season of his life on a team that got relegated. And we'll come to the importance of that in a sec. But he got 9 goals, 7 assists. He was involved in 52% of every goal that Firenze scored, either as a scorer or an assister. He was named man of the match on 9 occasions, the most of any player in the Portuguese league. He was named to the end of season all-league team, and he's led the league in like key passes and lots of the good stats. And a lot of folk were like, I've never heard of him, or if he's that good, why was he not with the Scottish team at the Euros? Well, that baffled us as well, because Scottish fans have been crying out for him to get in the team. He hasn't even got a senior cap. He's been capped at under 21 and youth level, but Steve Clarke was asked about him when he announced his squad and basically said, well, we've got other players that play in his position that I'm familiar with, and they're the players that got us here. Yeah, they're not turning in those performances that he's been turning in, week out. So that was baffling. But he's a player that can defend. He's got no problem with tracking back. He's no problem with going back, starting things. He can be box to box. He's mainly an attacking midfielder, but he can also play on the left midfield, even left wing. And he's been given quite a free role with Firenze. And he can kind of he drifts out a lot to the left. If you look at his heat map, I tweeted that out today, a lot of his stuff comes up the left side, which I do feel is a weak point of the team just now with missing Ali Adnan. So I mean, all that goes in his favour. I was told that he's been offered a 3-year deal at $3 million a year, which would be enough to outbid a number of the other teams that are interested in him. He's got interest from Portugal, he's got interest from Spain, England, Scotland. He's spoken before that he wants to go to a team, when his next move is up, he wants to go to a team where he's going to be a regular starter and he's going to be a contributor week in, week out. He wouldn't necessarily get that in the English Premiership. He's been linked with Celtic. He wouldn't necessarily get that there. The Whitecaps being prepared to pay those wages, this is a player that they're clearly wanting to build the team around.
Michael, does $3 million a year, does that equal £41,000 a week?
It does, yes.
Okay. I just want to check.
Yes, because that's been all over the UK papers as well.
Where did they get
But
that from?
They didn't mention it. I'm taking it they're just basing everything on my tweet, but of course they could be speaking to his agents and various people in Scotland as well. The stumbling block is Ryan Gauld his agents believe that he is a free agent from July 1st because he had a clause in his contract that Frenzy could have an option. But if they got relegated, the belief is that that option is null and void. The Frenzy president feels otherwise and was in Portuguese media on Friday saying, as far as he's concerned, he's their player, he's under contract for next season. Who's got a Camilo alarm ringing and a few other players as well. It could get
Michael,
messy.
So, Michael, he did in fact sign the contract extension, but his side believes that it's null and void due to relegation, as is not uncommon.
Yes.
Okay. Because it was
But the
whether
thing is,
it holds up in court or whatever, I don't know. But Firenze, because there's said to be like 30 plus clubs interested in him.
right. There's been 30 plus inquiries. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is it like, was it written to the contract or was it like a handshake agreement that it was null and void if they got relegated?
I would
That's the
imagine
question.
it's in the contract because anything that's a handshake in this day and age,
It's not reliable.
no.
They're usually my understanding is maybe it's all clubs, but definitely clubs that are not like the top teams have some kind of clause in a contract that talks about if the club were to get relegated, this is what it means, whether you're allowed to move, your wages change. There's all kinds of different things that it can trigger.
Well, Dario Zanata had that with Partick Thistle. He got relegated when COVID hit, and he used that to get out of his contract to stay in the higher league.
Right, yeah. So it can work both ways. It can be advantageous for the club. It can be advantageous for the player. It's interesting to hear you talking about it because as one article I was reading about it, Michael, it made it sound like Ryan's side representatives or whatever were not willing to admit that he had signed such an extension. So to hear that how you're painting it in terms of he signed it, but he believes it's null and void due to the relegation or due to a relegation.
Well, that's what I was told. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that is correct, but I mean, when I was first speaking to somebody about Gauld and the Whitecaps interested in him and whether he could be a fit here, I was told that his contract situation was complicated.
Right.
And then it was explained that this was what was meant by the complicated nature of it.
I was going to ask you about that, if that's what this meant. So it's because your conversations happened quite a while ago. This complication was that before?
Months ago. I don't know if they had been relegated at that point.
Right.
Or if it was just after and they were still trying to sort everything out. But his representatives are very confident that he can move on from July 1st. Transfer window's July 7th. You'd obviously have to go through quarantine and stuff. But the Caps have a break until the 17th anyway after the next two games. So lots of time to get it done if they can get this over the line. He's a good fit here, which is the main thing.
Michael, do you feel if the Whitecaps had to pay a fee on top of what they want to pay him per year, would that barrier be something that they could overcome, or you think that that's kind of a deal breaker?
Well, he's valued in transfer market at 5.5 million. So
euros.
Euros? Yeah. If that's the going rate that Firenze are wanting, I would say that deal's dead in the water.
And that's where I think the Firenze, the front office or whoever's in charge there, the board, they're looking at that value and they're saying that they're missing out on this. So I think they're going to try to put up a stink to try to get somebody to offer something.
And quite right, because,
But the thing is if he doesn't go for free, I think he won't get as much money in the salary then. Doesn't that affect the salary then? If like people won't offer as much?
It can.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a Whitecaps transfer situation without there being some kind of saga or something involved. Like this number 10, he's elusive. He's as elusive as the Loch Ness Monster. But forget the Scottish Nessie. We're talking about the Scottish Messi, because that is how he has been dubbed. It was more the mini Messi, and then it got changed to like Scottish Messi. Hardly anyone has really referred to him. It's just media hype. But Gauld feels that his game, it's not suitable for Scotland, really. And he actually went back to Hibs on a loan spell in 2019 and he kind of struggled. He's more used to like flair players around him, not just like big punts up the field and like big bruisers trying to kick lumps out of you. Him, Caicedo, Dahomey, Cavallini, Alexandre behind, maybe throw Baldy in there. That's a tantalising little unit there.
Yeah, and sprinkle a little white off the bench.
Yes.
You got that.
And you still have to get the strikers to put those chances in the back of the net, as I said.
But the thing
it's
is,
an exciting prospect.
The thing is right now, because they don't have, that perfect meld and everything like that, the strikers have to be perfect almost on every chance. They can't like lose a chance. When you have somebody that can create chances, they create multiple chances. And that way, if a striker misses one chance, they know they have another opportunity, and they know they're not going to. They know they didn't miss their one chance, so don't get as down as if because when you don't have that many chances and you miss one, you're going to think, oh, I'm not going to get another one. That was my one chance to score a goal. Where now, when you have a guy like Gauld and he's playing with Diber and Dahomey, the people know that they're going to have multiple opportunities to score. So if they miss one, there's another one coming up.
Let's hear a little bit from MDS. He was asked about the transfer rumours at media availability on Thursday. So obviously he's not going to be able to say whether the Caps are interested or not. But he did say that he's very aware of Ryan Gauld. He rates him as a player. Here's what he thought about him.
Ryan is a player that left-footed player with a lot of quality, good vision. Could play as a number 7, number 11, number 10. A player with a great vision, great intensity, a lot of quality. I know him from not only his time at Sporting, but also his time at Ferenc. Had a fantastic season this past season. And that's who Ryan Gauld is.
And is that report from Michael, is it accurate? Is that a player you expect to be a Whitecap in the near future? The accurate is always announced. So you ask me about Ryan Gauld, I told you with a lot of respect about his characteristics. Like you could ask me about Neymar, I'll also tell you about his characteristics. Reports I don't control. What comes out of places I don't control. I control talking about the quality of the players. Again, Ryan has a great left foot, good set play, good intensity, could play as a 10, 7, 11. Fantastic season last year. That's what I could tell you about Ryan. We know the player, yes. We followed the player, yes. But reports that come out, it's totally out of our control. Once somebody called me to ask me if we were signing Chiellini. And I don't know where that come from, so reports are reports. I told you about what I know about the player, the qualities of the player, and that's what I could tell you right now.
MDS there, just talking a little bit about the qualities that Ryan Gauld brings and whether they can get this done, whether it's another number 10 coming in, it's the missing piece. We've gone on about it ad nauseum for weeks, for months. They have to get this done. If you want to save this season, and I know I've just said this isn't the be-all and end-all and the ultimate cure to all the Whitecaps' woes, but it plays a big part in it. And add a couple of other pieces as well in this summer window, and you're looking at a competitive team. And they showed it tonight. I mean, they showed those sparks tonight, what they can be when they're at their best. Even
if it doesn't save this season, it could be like a Kendall Waston signing where it's like maybe not for this season, but it can get the next season rolling very quickly. And even if and I'm not saying that there's no chance this year, but the fact that if he gets something going and everybody comes back, Diver comes back, maybe Dahomey comes back and Cavallini comes back next year, they at least have a half a season to kind of get to know each other, get that chemistry rolling, and maybe next year when the season starts, they fix everything on the back end and they can get rolling right away and from their home pitch as well.
Yeah, have to hope so.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for our Whitecaps chat for this show and our MLS chat as well. But we're going to turn our attention to the Canadian Premier League now. They're back this weekend. First 2 games were played today on Saturday, a couple more on Sunday. We'll be back chatting about that after this.
Hi, I'm Lucas Cavallini. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Shooting the truth from the style cannon, blam blam. Gun rewind below, do it again. Reality slap right in your face, blam blam. These dirty white sneakers gotta walk all over them. Shooting the truth from the style cannon, blam blam. Gun rewind below, do it again. Reality slap right in your face, blam blam. These dirty white sneakers gotta walk all over them. Forgotten golden methods revived by the corrupted leaders. Propaganda tricks for the people, force feed them. By order, all the murderer, right rhythm, kill the heathen. Twisted justice warriors are cutting for the witches bleeding. They never let them be front or enemy. Hot shadow metal down threat, relentless agony. Butcher the cattle, dark side of inhumanity. You rant about peace, it's just a twisted type of parody. Age of discovery is the fine age of rape and pillage. Time past warrants the just upon the village. The feeding on the bleeding world is far from finished. They end up suffering the price of the privilege. They hide the lies, staying true to their deceiver's creed. Veterans of mass extermination marching on the streets. Certified seekers of the speck in the brother's eyes. Now coming back to pretty home is built on bloody lies. The truth from the style cannon, blam blam. Gun rewind below, do it again. Reality slap right in your face, blam blam. These dirty white sneakers gotta walk all over them.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio, 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's the last song from our Artists of the Month for June, Moscow Death Brigade. That's a song from their latest album, Bad Accent Anthems. That was Dirty White Sneakers. Might have played that song a few months back when it was first released, but it's a good one nonetheless. So I hope you've enjoyed Moscow Death Brigade. You can check out all their stuff. Check out their Instagram page. Also fireandflames.com is where you can buy all their stuff. We'll be back next week with a new Artist of the Month, and it's going to have a Scottish flair to it. Of course it is. But let's turn our attention to Canada in this part, and the Canadian Premier League got underway today, guys. 2 matches, kicked off with Alan Koch's FC Edmonton going down to a late 1-0 loss to Ben McKendry's Atletico Ottawa. And then the second match of the afternoon, Matteo Polizzi's Pacific FC going on to win 2-0 against Marcello Polizzi's Halifax Wanderers FC with a goal from Marco Bustos kicking things off.
It's the Volkswagen Cup.
It was. The coast-to-coast derby, I don't know what they want to call it. I don't think you probably saw any of the game, Steve, but I know Zach was watching avidly. What did you make of the action? The coaches in the build-up to this have pretty much all spoken about they're really treating this as a pre-season tournament. Just to have it really...
It's going to take some time to get everybody used to it. Obviously, there was, I think, some weather delays in there too.
Yeah.
You've
got Atletico Ottawa that's been away in Spain on pre-season training.
Yeah.
And then you've got Halifax Wanderers that's not been able to train at all, and Edmonton that's not been able to train much, and then Pacific FC that have trained quite a bit. So it's a definite sort of mishmash of teams, Zach.
Yeah, it's probably not good for the marketing of things in terms of talking about it that way. But regardless, I didn't get to see much of the Edmonton-Ottawa game, but obviously not surprised by the result. But I got to see the Pacific win of the Volkswagen Derby. And yeah, I was really impressed. I know that the training situations have been different, but I think this is a win that Pa Modou Kah and Pacific FC will be extremely happy with. It was like a workmanlike, very professional performance, really, really quality goals. The first one, quality build-up and finish. The second one, not quality build-up because it was kind of not a great clearance or whatever, but a great shot from distance. And really, really happy. Obviously, we love to see Marco Bustos score goals. And it was like classic Boosty today.
Yeah, he said he feels he's in the best form of his life and he's really wanting to shine this season. So, I mean, all the best to him.
He's basically, it seems like he's the face of CPL right now.
Yeah, they've used him a lot.
And they had a pregame feature on him too. That it was an extended feature as well, and showed all of his all the things he's done in the past and going future. So they're really like hyping up, and it's great that he scored the goal too to open it up. So he's kind of living up to it as well.
And a nice little touch as well with holding up Victor Blasco's jersey, who over in Spain just now, his father had sadly passed away before this tournament started. So that was a nice touch. And like Pa talked afterwards, and we'll play a little bit of audio soon from Pa. This is a really close-knit team, and he feels it's in the top 5, easily in the top 5 of all the clubs that he's played for, from top to bottom, just how this club operates.
And he's played for a lot of clubs. The feature, Steve, really did expose people to his talent.
It certainly did. Well, I mentioned Pa there. Let's just play a little bit of audio from Pa. I'm going to play some post-game audio first of all, which is just me asking him a couple of questions after the match. But then I'm going to add in at the end, I wasn't able to get on his pre-game call where he was talking a little bit about the season and building the squad and stuff like that. So I've just thrown those questions in at the end as well. Here's Pacific FC's Pa Modou Kah. 10 months off the pitch. It's been a long time away. What's the last 10 months been like for you? What's been your key focus in trying to get this team to the next level? And did we see signs of that today?
Well, first of all, that's what I said. Like, it was 9 months and 11 days exact to the last game that we played. It was 15th of September. And from that moment, we got a little taste. We made it to the second round, which was also the goal. It's trusting the process that we begin. And trusting the process is like you don't see results overnight. And when you face adversity, how are people? And this group, like I said, is a tight-knit group. Their focus is fantastic, and they know what they want to achieve. As a coach and the technical staff we have, it is our duty to push them, but also challenge them, and which they do to us again also. So that creates a healthy environment and growth environment. So this group, they're so focused, and they have a goal that they want to achieve, and just every single day, and being the head coach and be able to come to work with them, I cannot thank them enough, because it's very easy to give up given the unprecedented times that we are in, where lives are lost and people are struggling. For us to be able to just kick a ball and be happy, that's something that we cannot take for granted. We cannot take it for granted in this life that we live in right now with everything around us. So these boys truly love what they do, and they love coming to work. So it's all credit to them. So I cannot thank them enough.
Last season, it was a good performance from the team. It was a tournament. It was a short season. What are you hoping to see to take this team to, say, the championship game this year? How much focus are you putting into the attack? How much in the defence? How much better do you feel this squad is this year to last year?
I would say this year we have a depth. We have a depth of players that can come and do a job, in next man up mentality. And the biggest thing for me is that the group understand that what their capabilities are, what they can do. So, and they're realizing it, and they're doing it every single day. And that's what, as a coach, that's what you hope for. That's why we started last year, trust the process, because everything is a process. We all know the outcome, just like all the other 7 other teams. They all want to win. But for us, we focus on ourselves. We focus on how we're going to get better, how we want to play. That's all we got to focus on. When we keep doing it day in, day out, the rest will take care of itself.
Just your thoughts on what you learned last year in the bubble in PEI and what you can apply to this year's bubble in Winnipeg.
I mean, obviously, nobody expected a bubble, but again, it is what it is, and that's what we need to do to help this country and this football grow. And it's not on the CPL; it's a government thing. It's more on the government that didn't allow these restrictions. So for us, last year was a tournament. This year is going to be a regular season, but the first 8 games we're going to play it here. So you want to come in with a mindset of trying to win as much as games you can, just to put yourself in a good head start of the season.
who's impressed you in camp? Any surprises that have really sort of shone?
I wouldn't say there's any surprises. I mean, we have a depth this year that we didn't possess last year. And we have continued our continuity with the players that we had from last year and added players that we believe will strengthen the group. So overall, as a technical staff, I'm very satisfied with where we are with the group. So we are looking forward to everybody, getting their chances and staking their claim in the first 11.
You have kept a good core from last year, like players like Taron Campbell, Caden Chung, Marco Bustos. But what you've also done is you've gotten a lot of new exciting players like Ollie Bassett, Giovanni Santos, Polisi, and Aparicio. So I want to ask you, how do you think these new signs are going to help shape your team and make your team more dangerous?
Like I said, continuity is very important. And then you look to add the quality amongst the players that are already here. And it's when you have better players, obviously that also raises the standard of the rest of the group. And the new players have been great. Manu is one of the best midfielders in this league, captain for York 2 years. And coming in here, we know what he possesses. And seeing him in the island game, I was very impressed with his winning mentality, but also as his character. And now with Ollie Bassett, he's a player that has gone through the academy of Aston Villa and Southampton, who in our system and philosophy, he shoots us well. And then we have Matteo Polisi, who's also, we know since he's been in the Whitecaps residency. So overall, we have brought in players that we do believe in will help and help us achieve what we're looking to achieve this year,
Spoke about the continuity, and yes, you've brought some new boys into the squad to ameliorate the roster. How it seems like the squad has had a sort of they're a tight knit unit, and the camaraderie in the room is very strong. How have the new boys folded into that? How have they sort of intermeshed with the returning players?
I mean, all the new signings that we have has integrated very well, and that was one of the big main theme for us. Is always we look at the people. We just don't look at players, right? We look at the people. How is he as a person? How will he gel well with other players? And these players that are coming have been fantastic. They brought in life. It's crazy just to watch sometimes the bond that they have, and then you see Gianni and Ollie Bassett. They're like two brothers, and they've just been together for a couple of weeks. Manu knows some of these players through the youth system, in TFC. But everybody just love being together, and that just speak the strength of the group being human being first, rather than just focusing on themselves as players. We focus on who we are as a group.
Oh, this is my island. Oh, this is my island. From the port on Nice right through the mission till the end of time. Oh, this is my island. Oh, this is my island. We feed the sheep and cut the beans until the day we die.
So Pacific FC's Pa Modou Kah there, just chatting about the game and the season to come. We'll talk a bit about what that season is going to look like shortly. Now, something unfortunate happened during that Pacific Halifax game today. In the first half, Halifax Wanderers head coach Stephen Hart was carried off on a stretcher. The good news, the update is it was for precautionary measures. He's undergoing tests, he's feeling well, they're saying he's doing good and everything is okay. I'm sure we'll get a further update soon, but it was a worrying moment, especially when it comes on after like what happened with Eriksson at the Euros, and it's just been really hot out there and with COVID and everything. So we wish Stephen all the very best. I've said before how much I enjoy speaking to Stephen Hart the last couple of years. It's been great catching up with him. So he's hoping to be back in the dugout soon. And the players, none of the Halifax players wanted to speak after the game. They just wanted to get back to the hotel to see how he was doing. And their assistant coach spoke about it really rattled them, and it kind of at half-time they were told that it looked like Stephen was okay, but he felt it did affect him a little bit in that second half. So I wish Stephen all the very best from all of us here at AFTN. But I'm actually going to bring you a little bit of audio just now from Stephen Hart. I got a chance to jump on a call with him on Thursday. It was bright and early before work, so I was managed to get on that call and just asked him a couple of questions about the season. And you're going to hear as well from Jonathan Briggins and from Adam from the Young Gaffers as well, just asking Stephen Hart about what this Halifax team is going to look like this year. Here's what he had to tell us. Hey Stephen, good to see you again. Can you just maybe talk a little bit about what the last 10 months has been like for you? Because it's been a long time since you were on the pitch. What's been your main focus in that time? Just what's it been like putting this squad together?
To say it was a new experience is stretching it really. I mean, it was a different experience. We tried to take our time, weigh what we thought the squad needed against, of course, what is available to us. The right. Does it fit our salary structure, etc. And try to build a squad off of that. Just looking at player types that will give us a different type of look, a different type of depth. And of course, we needed to get some under 21 players. So all of that, I mean, it didn't take 10 months, to be honest, but I mean, all of that went into the thinking.
I mean, obviously you're eager to get back onto the pitch, and you're building on a great season last year, getting to the championship game. What can people expect from your side this year?
Well, if you look at last year, it was really a tournament, and tournaments are, you get off to a good start. You more or less will get yourself into the final four, and then you could take it from there. But so it was short 10 games really. This is going to be a little bit different. This is basically the start of the league, and we're all hoping that it goes on into August, September, October, etc. So it's going to be a marathon, but the difficulty with the 8 games is the time, the short space of time into it. As to what you can expect from the team, as I said, it's a little difficult to tell. Everybody, seem to look like they're getting towards proper fitness. We have the majority of the players back, so there's some good understanding among the players. I would even say a better understanding among the players. So it will take some tweaking and it'll take a bit of time, but we intend to use this month here to sort of get our rhythm and our match fitness together.
Now that this is a kind of a second year with this core group and a bunch of new players, how important is that in terms of going through a tournament structure like this again with the condensed schedule, and then moving on to newer things? Like what sort of things from last season are you hoping to build off of with the club this year?
Well, I'm looking at this part of it as almost like a preseason. We're going to approach it that way because we're going to be in a situation that's very much like a tournament situation in terms of there's one home team and everybody else is away from home, but we're not traveling, right? We make one trip and that's it. So I'm going to approach this as if it's a preseason. Take the time to get some of our working relationships back together under a competitive environment. And then, we're going to have to also be moving into a situation where we hope we could be traveling. And that gives us a different dynamic. So for this part of it, It's just about trying to get the team to come together, get some understanding of what we need to do in different situations, and get a feel for all the teams that we'll be playing, which are basically the teams from the West.
I know you mentioned some players kind of just joining the team recently, so I want to ask you about Marcelo Polisi, and kind of what you've seen out of him so far in training, and why he was kind of a priority player to add to the squad here.
Well, I haven't seen him in training. He only joined us this morning, so I have not seen him at all. But I've been actually watching him for 2 years, games he's been playing. I like a little bit of what he brings. He brings something different to the midfield, and it's going to be a matter of, just a little matter of time for him to get to know his teammates and fit in. But he's a traditional sort of holding midfielder that could give us a little bit more balance in the midfield, and a different look should it be necessary.
Interesting to hear your reflections on the tournament, and obviously you had a lot more time than I'm sure you would have necessarily liked to reflect on just the 10-game slate. Having said that, do you think the Halifax Wanderers we saw last year in the bubble is an accurate representation of what we can expect from you this entire season, or were you really just geared for this really short tournament and trying to maximize what you were going to get in a short window?
Yeah, I think we played in what I would call a tournament format. And all of that is now out of the window. It's a new season, everything is new in terms of new levels of fitness, different preparation altogether. The last time around everybody was more or less on equal footing. And now you have teams that are better prepared than other teams, just because of the nature of what happened across the country. So everything is new. And, this is going to be, as I said, a longer stretch, a longer period of moving towards league play into a playoff. And at the risk of repeating myself, we're going to use this more as a pre-season to sort of find the team coordination, the team unity, the relationships that is necessary for the long haul.
You're my little wanderer, off across the sea. You're my wanderer, little wanderer, won't you wander back to me?
Halifax Wanderers Stephen Hart there, just chatting about his team. Hopefully we'll see him back in the dugout soon. Just take it easy, rest up, and we'll see it pitch side again very soon. So the other game that was played today was featuring FC Edmonton. They went down to a 1-0 loss to Atletico Ottawa. It was a good goal that won it for Ottawa. I mean, Edmonton did well in the game. I mean, Edmonton last year, they showed signs of being a good team, but they struggled to put the ball in the net. Only got the one game so far, and they haven't scored yet, but they created a lot of chances today. They certainly had chances to go up. Alan Koch has taken over the reins from Jeff Paulus, and he's put together quite an exciting team. A lot of players that we know here at AFTN. And I got a chance to catch up with Alan after that game against Ottawa, just to chat about that first game, the season to come, what he's building there, and a few other things as well. So let's hear now from Alan Koch.
And we call this land South Africa, the Cape of Hope to the Northern Star, but the hope and peace will never be apart.
So delighted to be joined by our good friend Alan Koch, in situ in Winnipeg at the moment for the Canadian Premier League kick-off that did in fact kick off his team FC Edmonton, the first side that started the 2021 campaign. Welcome back to the show, Alan.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
Always good to catch up with you. And the last time we spoke was just you had taken the job down in Colorado Springs. You were talking about the excitement of that. I followed your progress for what was obviously a very strange season during the pandemic. I mean, what happened there? What made you decide to come back to Canada and leave Colorado Springs?
Yeah, we were actually really enjoying ourselves down in Colorado. It's a beautiful part of this continent, and I was enjoying the project with the team, and we felt like we made a lot of progress in the season I was there. I inherited the team that finished 18th in the Western Conference the year before, and we finished, I know it was a very convoluted type of COVID season, but we finished with the 13th most points in the Western Conference. So we felt like we made a lot of gains in that first year and kind of set the platform for the club to move into the new stadium, which they've moved into now. And I give Brendan Burke, who took over from me, a lot of credit. He's really continued that work that we started last year, and it's exciting to see them win a few games in the last few weeks. But we had a bit of a tough last year, as many people have had all over the world. My wife's brother passed away near the beginning of the year back in Vancouver. She was able, thank goodness, to come back for the funeral. I wasn't able to, and then she just got back into the States before the border closed.
Wow.
So we were stuck in the U.S. All of our family are mostly in Canada. Obviously, we have some of my family still in South Africa. And it was just very difficult. And so we didn't really contemplate coming back. But when we came back at the end of the year, we went back to our house in Vancouver, and literally within 2 days of being back doing our 14-day quarantine, we just knew that we knew we wanted to be back in Canada. We knew we didn't want to be away from family at this time, and really just decided, as we always should do, but it's hard to do in this business, we really prioritize family, and said let's go back to Canada. And it happened very, very quickly. Shortly thereafter, Edmonton, we started having conversations and discussions, and things rolled very, very quickly. And I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to lead this club now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, my condolences to yourself and to Amy. It's obviously a tough time, and then pandemic. I totally know what you mean about being separated from family. I've not been able to get back to Scotland to see my mum and dad, and right now, not really sure when I will. But I mean, when we spoke last, I said to you, I thought you might end up in the CPL, and you said, well, never say never. And here you are with FC Edmonton. It's a team that's had some highs in the first 2 years in the league, but it's had a tough run at it. You've had to obviously sort of build the squad. When I spoke to Jeff Paulus towards the end of the Island Games, I'd said to him that it felt like this was a team that had a really good core. It was a really good base. It was maybe the goal scoring that let it down. What's it been like building this squad up, and how difficult has it been with the pandemic on?
Yeah, it's been very difficult, to be quite frank, because I inherited I took this job at the end of last year, very close towards the end of the year, and then tried to do as much as we could in the off-season to retain and recruit and build. And then we had plans to start somewhat of a regular preseason, hoping that things were going to start to open up with the pandemic, and all of these different waves keep hitting us all over the place. So we had to go through a very fragmented preseason. I wouldn't even call it a preseason. I'd call it just a progression, because we started individual training, then we went into smaller groups, bigger groups, and then, thank goodness, and I give Eric Nundorf, our president, a lot of credit. He worked with Alberta Health to get us approved, so we could actually start training about 2 months ago. So we've been able to train, which is a huge positive, but we haven't been able to play any games, and that obviously is a major challenge in preseason, and that's why I wouldn't even call it a preseason. I would say we're in preseason now. Unfortunately, we're playing for 3 points in preseason.
Yeah, that was something I was going to come to later, but I mean, I'll come to that now, because I've not been able to get on a lot of the calls in the build-up to this tournament just because of work, but I've been listening to what a lot of the coaches have said, and so many of them are basically just saying that these 8 games, it's basically like a pre-season, but as you say, it's different because you've actually got important points at stake. And a team that gets off to a bad start, loses these points early, you're playing catch up right away. I mean, do you feel? I mean, so like some of the teams, like yourself, at least you've got on the pitch. Ottawa, your opponents yesterday, they've been off to Spain and doing stuff. Pacific FC played a game against the Whitecaps, but then you've got other teams that haven't hit the pitch at all. I mean, from talking to the other coaches, do you feel that it's kind of a level playing field just now, or do you feel that some teams definitely have an advantage?
It's definitely not a level playing field right now. To go to any country and have 2 months of training and playing games is fantastic preparation, and no other team had that. And then obviously Pacific were able to play the Whitecaps, and I give Pa and his club a lot of credit. They maximized what they could do in BC. But no, it's definitely not a level playing field. But that's part of what we're in. We're in a pandemic still. It's not over, and we all have to deal with different variables. So there's no fingers pointed at anybody. There's no animosity. It's just the reality of the situation. And you can see it. The games this weekend really have echoed a lot of things. You can see some teams are very fatigued. They fatigue quickly. Other teams are not fit. And then there are a couple of teams that have the ability to play for longer, sustained periods of intensity. And you can see our team, we tried to make some changes in our first game, but we hit a bit of a wall. And it's not really a surprise that we conceded late in the game. I think that's an unfortunate byproduct of not being match fit just yet.
Yeah, and I mean, from watching the games, there's been a couple of injuries so far. There's been a lot of cramping, and some teams certainly are tiring late on. I mean, we'll come to your game against Ottawa shortly. The roster that you have built, do you feel it's the finished article just now, or do you have a little bit of wiggle room to maybe make a few more additions?
Yeah, it's definitely never the finished article, because you're always trying to build and improve. Obviously, being in a salary cap league with lots of restrictions on roster, there'll come a point every season where that's it for the season. But we're not finished. We're trying to add one more player right now, and hopefully we can get that done soon. We also have Thomas Giraldo, who's on loan with us from Montreal, but he's not in the bubble yet. He's rehabbing injury, so hopefully he can join us at some stage too. So we're missing one or two players, but I'm sure everybody's missing a few players at this stage. And we're just gonna try and improve the group, but also maximize the group that we have. And I think I've said this every place I've been on this journey. The first year is a building phase. It has to be. The reason you take jobs is because things need to be adjusted, and that's why I'm here. And I love building, and this is just the first step. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, it certainly feels like the ideal club, I think, for you to be at this stage. And the way that the season started, it was announced quite late on. I know from speaking to some of the players, they didn't really have an idea up to a couple of weeks before as to what was happening, which obviously makes things difficult building as well. And then you lost a couple of players in the build-up to this kicking off. Chance Carter retired, and I guess the big one, Raul Tito, mutually parted ways just because of all the issues with getting into the country and quarantine. I mean, how big a loss are those two, but especially Tito?
Tito is a big loss. Well, the club tried to get him here last year, wasn't able to do it because of COVID. This year we tried to get him here, and just weren't able to get him here because of work visa challenges. And there's lots of the clubs in this league that have gone through the same thing, and obviously because of the pandemic, movement across countries is not as easy now as it normally would be. So unfortunately we're not going to get to see Raul, and obviously we wish him well in the rest of his career, but we've had to move on and see what we can do with our current group. Chance is completely different. Chance's retirement is injury based, and I've had people reach out and say different questions about different things, but this is a young guy who's tried to persevere. He's tried to push on. He's tried to do everything he could to try to give himself the best chance possible to play, and he's just got to a stage where it's just too difficult. And my heart bleeds for him because he's too young to retire, but unfortunately that's what's presented him. And he's a smart kid. He's got other aspirations too, and I think, like we said publicly as a club, we we wish him well now as he moves forward, and we'll support him in whatever way we can do.
Yeah, it's a shame to hear that, because I watched him here in the Whitecaps residency, and he's certainly a talent. And then when he signed for Edmonton, I was delighted for him. I mean, there's a couple of guys that we know quite well on your roster. One of them, Tommy Gardner, who I've known him for years, watched him for years, called his games at UBC. It's great to finally see him in this league. Getting the start yesterday against Ottawa was great too. What have you seen from Tommy in training and the build-up to this, and how big a player do you feel he could be for you this year?
Well, firstly, I have absolute confidence in the kids, because I think I played him, I can't even remember how old he was. Was he 17 or so?
Yes,
I played him
17,
in USL playoff games. So, and now he's a few years older, a few years wiser, a little smarter. I think it's taken a little bit of time to acclimate back into the professional game. It's obviously a quicker speed and a higher level of football than playing the university game. But he's a top player. He's fantastic at getting on the ball. His movement's great, and we've enjoyed having him here. So hopefully we can maximize him in this environment, and hopefully he can have some success here on the bubble.
And is the plan right now that he's going to be going back to UBC, or do you see him probably like hanging around for the whole season?
Yeah, these are the conversations that, thank goodness, I have a great relationship with Mike Mosier, obviously, from our SFU UBC days. And we're just in constant communication. We're talking all the time and keeping him posted, and he's asking questions, and I think it's something that's very fluid. Not just for Tommy, but I think for all the players. I think the players need to figure out what's best for them, and I think that's the beauty of this relationship. It allows you to keep things open, but obviously there'll be a time where we'll have to make a decision if he's going to stick around for the rest of the year or go back to university.
I wanted to ask you about the other draft pick you had, Jackson Farmer. Did things not work out with Jackson? Because I noticed he wasn't on the roster.
Yeah, Jackson came in, he trained with us, he did very well, to be quite frank. Unfortunately, we're dealing with some, I'd say, interesting salary mechanisms. Obviously, we have to balance that, obviously, and I think Jackson can play in this league. I thought he did well with us, but you've obviously only got a certain number of players you can carry, you have certain contracts, and we decided that we would sign another player instead of giving him the opportunity.
That's fair enough. I mean, for the rest of your squad then, who should people be watching out for this year? Who's really kind of excited you from what you've seen so far?
I've enjoyed working with all these guys, to be honest, Mike. It's a good group. They're an exciting group. They're motivated. They're hungry. I've said this to several of the players that have stayed here and several of the Edmontonians. Like, I think in football, sometimes for change to happen, you have to leave, and for sometimes change comes to you. And I think for some of the guys that were here, the changes we're making can hopefully kickstart their careers. And then we've obviously brought some other guys in too. So I think it's a bit of a hybrid, like the Eastern Ongaros, the Connor James, the Amir Didiches. They're all good local Edmontonians. But then we've also brought in Fraser, who I'd worked with before, who can do well. And we've got a couple good foreign players too. Tobias Wachowski, Charlie Mabusi, Shanoa Sua. I'm sure I'm missing several players that I probably should be highlighting, but there's a lot of guys with talent. I don't think many players in our group have peaked yet. They're still young enough that we can continue to push them and hopefully get more out of them and elevate their careers. But we also then have a couple experienced players, and Ramon Soria has been very good for us in the environment, and Frankie Gorski, who came and joined us from the USL too, gives us leadership and a little bit more experience at the same time.
So you kicked things off yesterday. Went 1-0 down to Ottawa, late goal given up, but a great performance and the better team for a lot of the game. You certainly had your chances to go ahead, to possibly win the match. I watched your post-game stuff afterwards, and you kind of noted just the difference in maybe how ready the groups were and stuff like that. How did you see yesterday's game? For me, certainly a lot of positives to take from game one.
Yeah, I was proud. I was proud of the group. We've only been working for a little while, but we haven't played a game. So we literally had no idea how players would respond to match type situations. So I was proud of the group. They fought for each other. They worked hard. I thought we played some good football. I thought we created chances. And on a better day, we could have taken a few of those chances and won the game. But we got through it. We had a team meeting this morning, and we discussed we're up and running now. We're in the fight. We're not preparing for the fight. So it feels good from that perspective. But we're disappointed we didn't get something out of the game. We thought we should get something. But football is not always fair, as we all know. Eh?
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, a lot of the guys on the team, they're going to have gone through bubble life last year at the Island Games and PEI. For you, this is a whole new experience. I know from listening to Rob Gale, he's not been overly happy with some of the restrictions on his team, but I've known Rob for a long time, and Rob's not happy a lot of time about things. But how have you found things so far?
It's interesting. Maybe I can try to be a little bit more tactful than Rob, but maybe I shouldn't be. You know what? It is what it is. I think we all appreciate the opportunity to be back working. We're doing what we love. The hotel is fine. The people here in the hotel are very, very accommodating. They're all working their backsides off to take care of all the players and the staff. The food has been good. The restrictions are a challenge. I think that's the big challenge for everybody. You look at the rest of the world is not living or operating like this in football.
Yeah,
that's the challenge. I think it's not. I don't think anybody should see any comments that anybody makes as being negative to what we're enduring here. But football is a global sport, and when you see how people are doing things in other parts of the world, that's frustrating. You turn your TV on and you watch a European Championship game, and you see some stadiums that are full. So we would love to be playing in front of supporters, and hopefully we'll get to that day soon. I know everything is a work in progress, but the sooner we can play in front of fans, the better it is.
Yeah, that brings me nicely. I just got a last couple of things to ask you, and one of them was about that. Like, getting back to Edmonton, obviously you've not had a chance to play a game in your home city yet. Ottawa, that's their second year in the league, and they haven't played in front of home fans yet. How much are you looking forward to getting back to Edmonton, getting this team in front of fans again, and just showing this city what you've built?
You know, what's crazy is being a BC boy, I actually miss Edmonton right now. Cannot wait to get back. So in this business, your home changes very quickly, and you embrace where you are. But I've enjoyed my time at Edmonton so far, and we look forward to getting back there. But most importantly, when we get back, we look forward to seeing supporters and fans and being able to embrace each other, because this game is better when you do it together. I think if players are playing in empty stadiums, it's not the same. I don't want to make the same comparison, but how would it feel for supporters to be in a stadium that's empty? It's not the lifeblood of the game doesn't exist unless we're all existing together. So we need to. I hope we do. I'm pretty certain we will, in Alberta at least, have fans there when we get back, and we look forward to putting on as good a show as we can possibly do. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, as you said, you look at the Euros, you see all these countries that they're cramming them in. And, like, I mean, even here, I was out last week at a Whitecaps under-23 game against FC Tigers. I'm going to be calling their games in the PCSL. There's going to be folk in attendance there. And you think, well, how can they do it at that level and then the bigger ones can't? But anyway, I guess that's for the health folk to sort out. Last thing for you. You've got, of course, the Alberta Derby. It's going to be a special occasion when you get to play Cavalry, especially in front of fans, both home and away. How much are you looking forward to that? I've known Tommy for quite a few years now after his foothill times, and he's a guy that likes to play mind games. Are you ready for all of that and everything that goes with a derby game?
I hope Tommy tries to play mind games, because I certainly won't get caught into that, that's for sure. I love derbies. I love the Cascadia derbies. I love the Hell is Real derby. I even love the SFU UBC rivalry many years ago. So Edmonton Calgary is a derby. The few people that I've been able to meet during this pandemic in Edmonton will tell you very quickly that Edmonton Calgary is a huge rivalry. And obviously, when we get to play each other, it's going to be a big game. But that's something we're going to embrace. We're in a building phase right now as a club, and I've been through this a lot in my university and my professional career. The first year is really about setting the table, and obviously when we play the derbies, we'll go give everything we can. We've never beaten Cavalry before, so we hope to change that very, very quickly. But this is going to take time. I feel like we're going to make inroads this year. We're going to try to compete as much as we possibly can, just like everywhere I've been. I feel like in Cincinnati, our first year we were decent. The second year we won the league and we broke all the records. My first year at SFU, we were okay. The second year we went to a Final Four. It's been like that everywhere I've gone in this journey. The first year really is an assessment phase. You start putting the building blocks in place, and then you build on that. And that's what the plan is here. We're going to embrace this year as much as possible. You focus one season at a time, and we want to shoot for the stars, but I'm very much a realist, of course. We're going to take baby steps and hopefully win as many games as we can, and hopefully go win our Classical for the first time in our club's history, and just keep on marching forward.
Fantastic. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Alan. I'll hopefully get out to see a game in Edmonton at some point this year. I've got a ton of WestJet credits that I have to use up, so I'm planning to take in some games. So I'll certainly get out there to see it, and I'll see you around on some of the post-game calls. So thanks so much. Good luck there, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
And we call this land South Africa, the Cape of Hope to the Northern Star, but the hope and peace will never be apart.
FC Edmonton head coach Alan Koch there, just talking all things about the Eddies. I mean, what are you expecting from Edmonton under Alan this year, Zach?
All joking aside about Edmonton and not really wanting them to do well in general. I like Alan, and I hope they do well for his sake. They also have a number of talented players and players who we know well, and I hope they will perform.
Tommy Gardner got the start on Saturday.
Is Fraser Aird's also there now, right? Too.
Oh yeah, Fraser Aird. Everything was going through Fraser Aird. He was taking all the set pieces. He seems to be the guy that's going to make them tick. And it was noted that when they did the squad and the roster, everyone had a position beside him, apart from Fraser Aird. So I can't remember who it was, but he was joking. It's like, he's a free spirit. He'll do whatever he wants. What formation are they playing? We don't know. It's up to Fraser Aird what they decide to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hope for their sake that the players like those you mentioned and some others, that they do well. I think the kickoff for them will hopefully not have the same kind of feel as the Island Games did for them, where it was really hard to get going and they were really poor on the whole. So I hope it won't be that kind of experience for them. I hope that this will be a positive experience for them and for some of those players. But we know that Edmonton and the Faths as the owner have a certain kind of approach, and they're very hands-on. And I wonder, I don't know any of the details behind the scenes of what's going on, but I wonder how the pandemic really will impact them, because based on how I perceive things to work there in the past, I would imagine it would have a bigger impact on someone like Edmonton than it will some of the other clubs. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out this year. But I mean, in general, obviously, again, all jokes aside, tractors and all that. I hope well for most of the teams and players in the Canadian Premier League.
Who don't you hope well for? I can't take to York 9, I have to say. They haven't excited me yet.
That one kit they have is quite nice, but it's hard for me not to like them because I lived there for so long.
Oh well, yeah. And you're a big fan of Yorkie. May he rest in peace wherever he is in space.
But no, there's only a few people maybe that I'm not super excited for, but most of them I appreciate very strongly. Most of the players and the clubs in the Canadian Premier League. For
anyone that doesn't know, the season each team's going to play 8 games in this kind of bubble environment in Winnipeg. Then there's going to be another 20 games, hopefully in their home markets. So it's a 28 game season. We'll get into the playoff situation soon, but does this can a tournament do it for you when you know there's nothing on it apart from just some early games? I loved the island games because that was it. It was the whole shebang. You had a winner. But these are basically just regular season games played at a pre-season pace initially and no fans.
Yeah, the thing is with this one, it's really to get everybody kind of get the excitement going. It's probably a little bit of a cost cutter, so you don't have to worry about travel as much. Obviously, they've already done the Pacific FC, Halifax, the two farthest teams apart.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of East v West matchups at this kickoff tournament because they get that out of the way.
Yeah, so they get to keep the cost low and everything, obviously. And I think it's just to, build some excitement because these kind of tournaments do build a little bit of excitement. We weren't really that into the island games until they started, and once they stared, it was it was great. It was enjoyable.
MLS is back. I was like a bit meh, and then it started, and I loved it.
For me, I'm probably cheering mostly for Pacific FC. I don't really care for much of the other teams. I like a few players on other teams, like Cavalry's Marco Carducci, and so Carducci is the guy that I've always thought of, especially when thinking about other keepers as well. I will.
When do you think about these other keepers? Not in the show, hopefully.
No, during the show.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Cavalry FC. If Pacific's not there, I probably would cheer for Cavalry, but Pacific's the team I cheer for mostly.
I really like Tommy Wheeldon, as long-time listeners on the show will know. I'd realised I hadn't chatted to him for ages or had any press releases from Cavalry FC, and I checked, and I seem to have dropped off their mailing list somehow. So I'll hopefully get a chance to chat with him on Sunday after the game.
Obviously, Alan too. Alan's big friend of ours.
Alan for so
long time.
Years now.
So I even though he's coaching FC Edmonton, I'll cheer for them a little bit here and there.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get you to a Pacific game because you've never made it over there yet. So
no. Yeah. We'll see. This year could be the year.
Yep. Fingers crossed we can all get to some games soon. So this 28 game season, it's a single table, which I'm a fan of. Top 4 teams will then go into straight knockout game, first v fourth, second v third, with the first and the second teams hosting. I quite like that format. I know it's when it's only 8 teams and half the teams make the playoffs, it does lose a little bit, but hopefully it's going to keep as many teams in the mix as possible for this season. It's hard still to see past Forge FC really as one of those 4 teams. Pacific impressed me today, so I mean hopefully they will be in the mix as well, get some playoff football on the island. That would be absolutely fantastic to get over to.
I've seen them higher up in a lot of predictions. A lot of teams do have them high up there.
Well, I mean, Pa's spoken about like this has been a process, and this is like the 3rd year of it, and you're really going to see what they can bring this year, and I think that is going to be the case. I mean, Ottawa have got some exciting talents. They impressed me today. We'll see what the 4 teams on Sunday bring, but I'm looking forward to it. I've got a few disappointments I want to talk about. First of all, starting it and your first game when the Euros is on. And I know the first game kicked off in between the 2 games, but it is not ideal starting during a big tournament when your games aren't even on TV to begin with. There's going to be a lot of soccer fans in Canada that have got no idea that the Canadian Premier League kicked off this weekend.
And that's not even the Euros. If there were no Euros, that might be the case, unfortunately, because it's not on television.
But I don't know why they didn't push the kickoffs back a bit. Yeah, it would maybe have clashed with TFC and the Whitecaps, but there's going to be less folk watching that than tuning into the Euro game. And of course, the worst nightmare for them was the Italy-Austria game went to extra time, so folk would be watching that. At least there was a weather delay that kind of put things back for the second game between
that weather delay that lasted just enough time for the Italian team to win.
With the blue sky.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was thunder. So I mean that's one of my bugbears. But I mean, the other one is the general fact that all these games are going to be on One Soccer. There's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to know it's on, and I'm not knocking One Soccer. I thought it was good production today on the whole, although the fake stadium stuff was doing my head in that second game. It kept moving about. It was like, that was very uncomfortable to watch at times. But I mean, it's a good camera angle. It seems a better camera angle than it was at PEI.
Yeah.
I just wish they could get it more exposed, get it out to a bigger market. That's one of my big bugbears. Of course, the other bugbear is they have not recognised the Players' Union yet. And David Clanachan was asked about that. I'm going to play some David Clanachan audio shortly talking about it. And just brushed it off, said he's not here to talk about that. He's here to focus on this. They'll get round to it when the time is right. So, I mean, that's all disappointing. Those things do detract a little bit, but I am excited for the season to come. CPL Commissioner David Clanachan did chat to media on Thursday about the season and what it's taken to get to that, the financial situation of the league. I wasn't able to make the call. I was at work, I was at a meeting, I could not get out of it, but I've got the audio. I'm going to play some of what I thought was the most interesting bits of it just now. So let's hear just now from the commish, David Clanachan.
I know you guys within the CPL have come out with a bunch of scenarios when it comes to after the fact, playing at these home facilities. And say if there is another wave that comes in, God forbid, but if it does, what are some of the things that you guys have in place? Do you have a contingency plan where you might have a Winnipeg 2.0?
Yeah, we've talked about a number of things, Moses, but right now we are very focused on the kickoff in Winnipeg, and we're watching the provinces as they start to open up. We obviously, we've heard announcements. We need to follow. There's going to be protocol setups that have to be done. The clubs are going to be back at the offices of the clubs are going to be back at home, working through the logistics and everything that needs to happen. We actually believe that the country is moving in the right direction. I agree. There's always that chance something could happen. But I think the way Canadians have embraced this idea of getting their vaccines, and now that the second dosage shots now are over 20% and climbing every day, that's a good thing too. So, as Canadians, we're relatively good rule followers. And I think in this case, that stands as in good stead, right? So, and I think people are just, they want to do the right thing because we miss live sports so much. So we have other alternatives that we can work on. No issue whatsoever. It's amazing when you're able to do a couple of these things and you do it relatively seamlessly. I mean, it's kind of like a duck on a pond, right? Above the water, it looks like the duck's all calm, but underneath those feet are kicking like you've never seen. So. But we now that we've done it and hopefully everything goes the same way in Winnipeg, we become very adept at it, and we can be creative and nimble, and we've set ourselves up for that specific reason, Moses.
What kind of work went into deciding that Winnipeg was going to be the place to go to start this season instead of returning to the PEI bubble, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question, Eric. I think, one of the things, it's not a lot of people realize this, but we were being courted by 11 different sites, 4 international countries, including the United States. 5 international countries, 1 in Europe, the United States was another, and 3 in the Caribbean. We also had 6 venues that were looking for us to go to them in Canada. What really happened was it was more when we could start in Manitoba, the government of Manitoba, along with the provincial health ministry there and the city of Winnipeg, they stepped forward and really came to us with an opportunity to get started earlier than others. And so that, and the fact that we have Valor FC as one of our member clubs there, knowing that we would be able to leverage what we've already built there, we thought that was the right thing to do. So it's very interesting because I think as well as we did with the Island Games in Prince Edward Island, and by the way, phenomenal hosts, phenomenal people opened their homes and their hearts and their doors to us when we went there. But this was the right thing to do for us in this year. So that's why we ended up in Winnipeg and in Manitoba.
I'd imagine this bubble can't be cheap. I mean, the flights, the hotels, the buses, the meals, all the signage, and you guys are going on almost 2 years now without having any butts in the seats. So just financially, how are you guys pulling off this bubble here in Winnipeg?
So a lot of it is commitment from the clubs. There's no doubt. The clubs you've got to invest in your business, and that's what's happening. It's happening in businesses right across Canada, Taylor. You know that. It's one of those things. It also means that you've got the government of Manitoba and tourism in Winnipeg. And economic development, they're also helping as well. They saw what we did at the Island Games, and they saw how much we were able to promote the province and the city of Charlottetown out there. And so it was millions of dollars of value that they got out of it. So that worked well. I'm not saying it's dollar for dollar. They're not giving us that level of contribution, but they've stepped up for sure, and they've helped us also negotiate some good deals with hotels and things like that. So that's all part of it. But we make sure that we give back a lot in kind as well. So but the vast majority of this really does come from the league and from the clubs. The owners have to step forward, and that tells. What it shows to me is that we've got owners that are committed, and they are patient, and they understand that you need to invest in things before they can grow to where you would like them to be. And I think we've shown that now in 2 years. I wouldn't want to do it forever because the reality is, when it comes to entertainment, especially spectator sports, you need bums and seats. That's what pays the bills. So, but hopefully we've almost got that behind ourselves, Taylor.
And just jumping back to what Moses asked earlier, and I'm not trying to be negative, but I mean, who knows what could happen this year. So just how devastating would it be, though, if these teams aren't able to return to their home markets and you guys play the season? And just how confident are you that this league can survive this pandemic?
Oh, no, listen, we will survive. I think there's a famous song like that, but no, Taylor, we will survive. I'm very confident that the country's going to come out of this in the right way, but we also have contingency plans. We know what we can do. Listen, there's too much at stake here. This league, we need this league. This game needs this league in this country, and we've heard that loud and clear from every corner of the country. So we're ready for it. Sure, we wouldn't be happy about it. But you get creative, you pivot, you get nimble, you do what you have to do, and I think you'd probably agree we've done that in our short term that we've been around so far, Taylor.
This season, the league is going into its third season, and obviously it's won the hearts and minds of a lot of hardcore soccer fans in the country. So how does the league sort of expand its fan base beyond that pool of fans to grab more sort of casual sort of soccer fans and more just general sports fans in order to gain more relevancy within the Canadian sporting landscape?
That's a good point, John. Well, there's a couple of things. Obviously, it's distribution of the sport for sure. You've got to make sure you've got proper distribution, and we're doing a lot of that with One Soccer. But there's interest by people to see our games. They want to see the games. I think the sport itself, and this is where we all the entire ecosystem, all of you, all of us, everybody has to pull together on this. We know that this sport won't be built by one person or one organization. It has to be built by all of us. And so it's a number of things all coming together. It's whether it be MLS clubs or CPL clubs, whether it's the men's and women's national team, whether it's Forge playing in CONCACAF, whether it's our league playing, whether it's the next level down in Ontario at League One. It's all of those things happening together where we're talking about soccer all the time in this country, right? It's about success of individual Canadian players playing overseas, whether it be either men or women in some of the professional clubs over in Europe, winning in teams where they're leaders in those teams, the Alphonso Davies of the world, the Jonathan Davids of the world, the Kyle Aarons of the world that are actually there, and Christine Sinclair, all these, they're bringing home hardware where they've won it, and they're playing at the highest levels of football globally. So I think that's really what starts to get people interested in it. And then we've got a generation of young people, John, that are all growing up playing this game, much more than they've played any other sport before. Soccer now is the highest participation sport in this country, bar none, right? We've talked about hockey versus soccer in the 5 and 6 year old category in the past, right? We're bringing those young people along. The most important thing was to have that pathway built where everybody feels they can stay in the game, right? And be part of it. And those who want to aspire to be better or the best, there is a pathway for them. We're doing all of the right things. It takes time, famous saying when they did the big dig in Boston. I said it to you before. If Rome wasn't built in a day, if it was, they'd have hired their contractor. I feel that every single day, John. So, but that's what we have to keep on. It's a mission for sure.
Great. And just a quick follow-up, if I may. I'm just wondering, has there been any talk between the league and the Professional Footballers Association of Canada with regards to recognition of the Players Union, or is that on hold for now?
No. Look, today, I'm focusing on celebrating the whole kickoff of our 2021 season and sharing all the exciting news. Right, this past year's been we've done a tremendous, filled with a lot of hard work. There's a lot of determination and endless hours of legwork that we've put into this. So we've been focused on being able to deliver a season so our players can play. And our fans and supporters can get and can get to see games because they've waited and they've been so anxiously awaiting this for a full season of CPL football. But that's what we're focused on right now, and we'll move forward with the other later on.
As the league continues to grow with the number of clubs, quality of play we've seen, attendances most likely, and then you got the recent success of the national team. World Cup is just around the corner. We see CPL players going out on loan or transferred to other leagues around the world. I'm curious from your perspective, what type of interest are you seeing in terms of interest in the league and specifically internationally?
I think, when we were fortunate to meet our friends and partners now from Atletico Madrid, that changed the world for us. We had already been having talks with different clubs. Everyone wants to poke a little bit, kick the tires, see what's going on over here in Canada. You got to remember, people love this country around the globe, right? They really do. And so there's a genuine interest there right away. But when Atletico Madrid stepped up and said, we'd like to own a club in the CPL, that changed everything because it validated what we were doing. And I think that only gets better. Now, yes, are we talking to other clubs across the world? Yes, we are. Can I tell you who they are? No, I can't, because we have, we sign these non-disclosure agreements. But we're very bullish on the fact that we've got a tremendous pipeline for expansion here, and that's going to be that I'm extremely excited about, because again, people that you look at the big clubs across the world, they want to grow their brands. They can only grow their brands to a certain level when it comes to fans and supporters, but they need to grow them from an economic perspective as well. And so you can see some of the clubs that have already been doing that. Everyone's looking at the same thing. And of course, they see the level of opportunity for athletes to be created as great soccer players coming out of this country. It starts with a small amount, right? But it's growing. You can see it now. And it's that snowball running down the hill. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so yes, are people talking to us? 100%. Can I tell you who they are? No.
We are the league with the extra man. We are the league, we are the empty man. But don't you say you've been here for the league are here, and we have scored. We are the league. We are the league.
CPL Commissioner David Clanachan there. The league's underway. It's running for the next month in Winnipeg, hopefully back to the home markets. We're going to be doing a lot of interviews over the coming weeks with some of the players, the coaches. We'll have some one-on-ones to bring you, so stay tuned for that. That is it, though, for this episode of the podcast. We've managed to get through it with very little mistakes. I don't have too much to cut out. It is sweltering hot in all our houses. I had to close our window because neighbours seem to be having a party, so that's just added to it. I can't wait to get the air conditioning back on, so I'm going to say bye. Just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online, starting with you, Steve.
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat.
And you can find me on Twitter also at Zachary AM.
You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read our stuff away from the numbers, aftn.ca. Had a few articles up on that this week. I'm trying to get back more into the writing side of things because we've been doing a lot of podcasting. That is it for this show. We've talked Whitecaps, we've talked MLS, we've talked CPL. It's a busy July to come in all of those aspects. Throw in the Gold Cup as well. There's Copa America. There's the Euros winding up. We didn't even have time to talk about that. No, I'm not going to talk about Scotland. All I'll say is I hope Germany stuff England in when they play at the start of next week. I'm sure Zach does as well. We will be back soon. Until then, thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay cool, and mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN